This is the greatest conflict of all time. It has lasted for centuries and is global. At the same time that humanity's cognitive capabilities progress, there have been groups who are set on regressing our intellectual and social capacities. Progressives eventually won in a number of places, but the regressives use subtle, underground tactics when their usual brash and aggressive tactics are less effective. They slip themselves back into politics at both national and local levels. They get into local governing positions in different areas and then network the areas turned regressive. They infiltrate schools. When that isn't successful, they attempt to damage public schools by diverting public funds to private schools via so-called choice, or by opening schools controlled by religious groups. They force their extreme ideas into charitable projects. They force the needy to go through religious propaganda and rituals in order to receive assistance. They sometimes pretend to be the very progressives which they fight. They alter history to fit their beliefs. They also gather strength by consolidating their groups and forced gatherings. They indoctrinate their children and sometimes reject those who don't get trapped in the indoctrination. They use fear tactics. Regressives are more prone to violence either when they lose ground or when they feel the need to violently push their beliefs. The violence is partially due to the lack of a factual foundation. The progressives sometimes unintentionally further the goals of the regressives. They are sometimes less cautious than warranted when they include regressive ideas into their suite of progressive movements. This sometimes has the effect of weakening the overall movement. It also gives ammunition to the regressives. Too many progressives don't take regressive political platforms into account when they vote for individuals who are tied to those platforms. Then the supposedly less regressive politician falls in line with the party's platform in order to further his or her position within the regressive party. I personally believe that the regressives cannot win in the long term, but they can continue to cause damage as they gain and lose ground. The regressives have some avenues of influence which they control absolutely. Progressive infiltration into some of these avenues are very difficult, whereas regressive corruption of progressive groups occur in part because of progressive openness. Although openness is integral to much of progressiveness, the regressives infiltrate traditional progressive groups and corrupt them. In a way, I think of regressiveness as a disease. We've had it for most of humanity. It may not be completely curable, but there are immunization options. The war is complex. This is partially because there are opposing regressive factions with the progressives caught in the middle. It is further complicated by many of us who have a mix of progressive and regressive tendencies. In some cases, the dominance of one or the other shifts back and forth within people. Unfortunately, regressives have taken advantage of this fluctuation within people. This is intended as an introduction to a series of blog and vlog entries which will discuss details of this war as I see it. I would like this to be a collaborative project. Leave comments if you have suggestions or want to contribute. I am not claiming that I have all the information. One difference which I see between progress and regress is being willing to say, I do not know, rather than acting on a false sense of knowledge. Acting on a false sense of knowledge seems to me to be one of the core elements of a lot of regressives. I will try to explore this in my next post. I speak as someone who spent a large part of my life transitioning from being in one of the more regressive camps to being a progressively minded person. I was raised in a heavily religious situation with environmentally and socially backward perspectives. But I saw some of the things which I was taught which was wrong. That eventually led me to question more and to question myself. After a rough transition period, I became better.